So I haven't made a talkie video in quite a while, and mostly this is just because I really hate having to edit my own voice, because hearing your own voice kind of stinks. But I kind of want to go over what I've been up to art-wise since 2020, because I feel like there's been a lot I've been doing, and my art's changed a lot. Case in point, here's some of my 2020 art, here's some of my 2025 art. So what have I been doing since 2020? There's a few things. Obviously, surviving is a very good thing. It's very important that you survive. I've been doing a lot of artist alleys, art classes. I've tried streaming, but I'm kind of bad at it, so I've been wanting to go over and get better at it. But we can talk about the artist alleys first, because that's something I wanted to do for a long time, and I didn't feel like my art was good enough, and honestly, there's still points where I'm like, is my art good enough? But I do it anyway, and I think it's a lot of fun. Mostly I've been doing TF cons because that makes the most sense of my art, but I've done a few local conventions, mostly like anime type cons, a couple zine fests. I also, of course, went to a few conventions for fun, which really, even when you're not doing it for art alleys, I think going to conventions and just doing new things really does help art-wise, because I'll see what other people also are making, and it kind of inspires me to make more of the stuff I've been wanting to make. 2025 was definitely the most amount of cons I've done in a year. I did 5 cons as an artist, and I think it would have been overwhelming if it weren't for like other things going on in my life that made it very possible for me to do this. The first con of the year is TFCon LA. So TF cons in general are usually my major cons. If you look at my stuff, most of it's Transformers. I love drawing robots, so this makes sense. I was not prepared for how packed this year's TFCon LA would be, and honestly, I won't lie, it was a little bit stressful. I was kind of dealing with it alone. I didn't really have a full-on table helper, so the amount of breaks I actually got to take, it wasn't as much as I would have liked. Granted, I love going to cons as like an attendee as well. It's kind of a double-edged sword doing Artist Alley sometimes for me, because I really want to see more of the convention, but also I really do like being at my table, and I can't really be at 2 places at the same time, so usually I end up spending most of the con at my table, doing Artist Alley table things. And my bank account thanks me. I wish I got to browse the dealer's hall a little more. In general, for any convention, I think if you are tabling on your own, get someone to help you. Like, get someone that can, look at your booth when you need to be out. Somebody that will let you take a little bit to actually see the con for yourself, too. Besides that, I did get to hang out with a lot of cool people. The venue is still pretty small, and sometimes during the convention itself, I feel like the space isn't really ideal for shopping. There were a lot of lines this year that made it pretty tricky, actually. But the after hours are always so fun. I've never had a bad time after hours. Before and after the con, I ended up doing Universal twice, and that was great. I love going to Universal. It's a little embarrassing how much I went to Universal this year, honestly. No regrets, though. No regrets. The next con I did was Super Cincy Expo, so I shared a table with a local friend. This is the deadest con I've ever done. I did make back table. I can't imagine what it would have been like for anybody who traveled for this convention, because literally it was so dead. There were times when I just got up and went to play video games in the video game room. Not a single person passed by the table in the time it took me to play through some bullet hell games. It was wild. This was a first or second year convention, so I did expect it to be pretty small. It was kind of wild just how quiet it was. Because of this quiet, I did make a lot of friends at the con, though. There was a lot of time to talk to the other artists, the other attendees. One of the things when you're tabling, you'll talk to a lot of people, but if it's a really busy con, it's hard to have a conversation because you'll be talking and then you need to let another person buy stuff. So the amount you can really have a conversation with another person is kind of limited. But when a con is dead like this, you can kind of just do whatever. I learned a lot of stuff during this convention. I went through the horrible decision of trying to DIY all of my charms. This wouldn't have been so horrible if it weren't for the fact the UV printer I was using could no longer print white. Now, why is this a problem, you ask? For any sort of charms, you need to have a second layer of white in between if you want to be double-sided, or at least be opaque if you are printing on a clear acrylic. This was a very tedious process to DIY because I had to individually paint that white layer, and it didn't even look that good. I kind of don't know what to do with the remainder of those charms because they aren't good, but they really did take way too much effort for me to just not do something with them. I might see if I can use them for some future art project, because I really would prefer to recycle it some way. And then was Anime Ohio, which was by the Super Cincy people. It was definitely a much more alive con, even though we were in a room that was not advertised as much as it probably should have been. They have 2 different vendors' rooms and also artists in the hallway. It's very much, the con has very little in terms of panels and other scheduling outside of guests and vendors, which I really think it would benefit from having more events at the con, personally. I kind of went on and on to the convention holder about some of the stuff that I think would be nice for the future, like better spots for photos for cosplayers or places for meetups. I think that kind of thing would really help this kind of convention grow, really, because at the moment it feels very much like, okay, this is a shopping place, but I think if it could also be a place for people to meet up and socialize, that's really kind of the point of a convention, I think. But this convention was definitely more packed. I did a lot better than I did Super Cincy Expo. It was really a great level of busy for me. It was busy enough that generally I was making money. That's kind of the thing that an artist at Artist Alley wants to do. But it wasn't so busy that I couldn't browse and enjoy other people's tables. Doing conventions locally, I really do like going to this convention. I have a lot of friends that will come here, so it's really nice to just meet up with local people. I think if you are starting off as an artist that wants to do artist alleys, I highly recommend trying out your little local conventions first. Like, even if they aren't the best conventions financially, even if you aren't making $1 billion, meeting people around you is really fun, and having local art friends, you really can't beat that. You get a good sense of if you like doing conventions in the first place, and it's local, so you aren't paying for hotel or as much for moving around, that kind of thing. And I would recommend sharing a table with someone else until you really have enough stuff to make it worth a whole 6-foot table, because it's a lot easier to fill a 3-foot space than it is a 6-foot space. As much as I could critique it, I do enjoy going there, I do enjoy tabling there. It's still nice to have a con in my area that I can go to. This was Zine-Cincinnati, which was just a little one-day zine event that we had in my city. You can probably guess what city it is if you know geometry and can read the title. It was really fun. I really enjoyed checking out other people's zines, and it was fun also to sell my own, of course. It wasn't exactly a huge profitable convention, but that's not always the point. The table wasn't that expensive. It was local. The area that I was in was a little far, which was a little bit difficult to get to because I couldn't just take a bus over there. It was still within the area. It was pretty close. I made enough to cover table fees, so I really can't complain too much. Because of this event in the past, I've actually gotten into the habit of making a new little zine for each convention, which has been really fun, actually. I really do recommend making those kind of little zines and trading them around. They can really be whatever you want. A million people have made videos about how to make them. Maybe I could make a video about how I make them too. I don't know if people will be interested in them, but let me know in the comments if you want to see a video about making zines. Another nice thing about this convention was that they had catering for all the artists. It was very much appreciated. I wish more conventions did some kind of catering for all of the artists, because it can be really difficult to get out from the table to get food in some way. Usually when I table, I will go to a grocery store nearby beforehand and grab some things I can eat at the table, and usually have to ask someone to pick up a DoorDash thing for me. Having that catering would be so nice at so many places, or at least free water bottles would be welcome. Now, TFCon Chicago. TFCon Chicago is literally the best I've ever done at a convention financially. It was a bit of a stressful con. It had similar issues that LA had, for different reasons. In the past, TFCon Chicago's venue was fine. It would never felt really overcrowded or anything. I really liked the venue, actually. Except for the fact there's not really that many great spots to hang out. But this year, it was so crowded. It was... A lot of people have talked about the crowding issue in other videos, TikToks. I don't really feel like there's much for me to add. Especially as an artist, I was sitting there. I did not really experience the worst of it because I didn't have to wade through crowds myself so much. I could see the lines. I could see different artists in Artist Alley having lines to their tables, and sometimes those lines did kind of block my booth, but that was mostly as people were first lining up and didn't really know where to go. I really think it would help if they were able to make little tape down lines for some of the really big artists there so that people know kind of how to line up for it. Honestly, it might be worth asking if that is something that an artist could set up if they know they're going to have lines. A lot of people gave me rock candy. I know that's a really specific thing to mention, but I got a lot of rock candy from people, and I always appreciate it. I love people calling it Energon so much. I think that's so cute. There weren't crazy lines for my table, personally. I can't believe there weren't crazy lines for my table. I can't believe everyone on Earth isn't buying my art. I kid. But it was still very busy for me. I don't know that I really had that much time when I was at my table that was completely free. Although Sunday was pretty chill. Sunday was a very relaxed day compared to Sunday at LA, for example. Chicago was still less stressful than LA because I had a friend that was helping me at my table. Thank you so much again to that friend. And especially on Sunday, it was a lot less stressful than Saturday was, I feel. I really do feel kind of bad for people who had Saturday only badges because Saturday was incredibly crowded, it got hot, it was stressful. A lot of people made videos about Saturday specifically, while Sunday was pretty reasonable, I think. I did most of my own shopping on Sunday. There's a few toys that I always look for at TFCons that I could reasonably get online but haven't. Like, I really would like to find Cybertron Short Round at a TFCon, but I haven't quite had that luck yet. If someone wants to bring me a Short Round to TFCon LA, I'll pay you whatever people are selling him for on eBay for it. But yeah, tabling went well. Besides the tabling, I had a lot of fun. One of the nights, some people taught me Beyblade. I think they were completely drunk, but they brought Beyblade. I had fun playing it. It was fun to watch. Very chill. I had a few little art hangouts of people where we just drew together in that lobby area. It was kind of hard to finagle meetup times with some of my friends, which is a shame, but it kind of gave me a lesson that, okay, I gotta be more proactive in scheduling things, because there's so many people I love at these events and want to hang out with everyone, and it makes it very difficult. I also saw Frankenstein Well is here, which was very good. That was a very fun watch. Highly recommend if you haven't seen Del Toro's Frankenstein by now. It's kind of weird that I have a lot of disappointments personally with the convention, completely unrelated to the convention itself, just in terms of things I wanted to do. Like, I wanted to take a train from my city all the way to Chicago. The train tickets sold out before I could actually get them, the ones I wanted at least, which was such a shame. I think that would have been so cool. There's always next time. And really, I think at the end of the day, my main gripe is I just want more time to hang out with people. I think life is all about hanging out with your friends and having fun. And part of having fun for me is doing art and learning new art things. If I had some kind of Skillshare sponsorship, this is probably where I would put a leeway for that in there, but I'm not sponsored by Skillshare, and I've literally never paid for Skillshare because, for me, I would really prefer an in-person class with a teacher because it means I have a specific place I have to be every week. Even if I'm not actually graded, I set up myself an expectation if I have to go to a specific spot to do something. So it kind of forces me to actually do the thing. And last year, I did 2 classes. I would have loved to do more art classes, but the ones that are available for non-university students, it's always kind of random. There's a lot of different places you can go to do these things. I would highly recommend checking your community art centers to see if they have classes. I did 3 art classes this year, actually. The first one was an acrylic painting class, and technically I started that in 2024, but it went way over. We finished it up in 2025, so here's the bits I did of my little painting for my final painting. We did a few paintings in there. It was great. The people in there were wonderful. It was just at a local community art center. The first one was an oil painting class where we focused on figure drawing. It was a lot of fun. We had it spread out through a few weeks, and it was my first time doing oil painting. It was something that I always felt a little bit intimidated by, but the actual process was really pleasant, I think. I feel like the way the colors mixed together felt incredibly good to me. Granted, you look at my oil painting and there's not really all that much mixing I did, despite the fact that is one of oil painting's benefits. I think also because of how the class structure was, I didn't really experience the most frustrating parts of oil painting, which is namely how long it takes to make it. Because each class was a week apart, we would do one part of this figure painting and then, oh, a week's passed, time to go home, and then next week it would be dry and you could do the next part. It had to be interesting from the model's perspective as well, because you had to get into such a specific pose every single week. I really do want to do more with oil painting sometime though. I feel like it would be really interesting to draw some Transformers with it, because it feels like, I mean, it's a timeless medium. People have been using it for so long, and drawing something like Transformers or anything sci-fi with it feels really novel to me and really fun, but oh my gosh, I need a better space for it first and foremost. Like, I need proper ventilation, I need the proper space. I'm actually moving very shortly, and my hope is to really make my art space at my new place a lot more conducive to working with all these different mediums. Right now, my art and my computer stuff is all basically in one spot, and it's really disorganized, and I mean, obviously, there's always the part of me that wants to make a beautiful aesthetic space for sharing on the internet, but really, what I need the most is just a space where I am able to work. The other class I took was a cell animation class, which was such a cool concept, and I did have a lot of fun with it, but I do feel like the class was a bit too short to really dive as deep as I would have liked into it. Hopefully by the time I post this, I've finished the cell animation and can share it while you're watching this. It was a really cool process for sure. My main motivation for taking the class was honestly to figure out where in the world the professor was getting cells, which I did figure out, and I appreciate that so much. I was hoping for the more specific cells with like the holes punched in, I won't lie, but everything worked out. I made the cells. The other thing about the class was I feel like the materials they could provide weren't really the most ideal for cell painting. Specifically, I think the pens they were using for us to hand draw the lines onto the cells, it really did struggle with most materials we would normally use. And really, because what we were using were acetate sheets, like if you think about old-timey projectors, basically those projector sheets. You can print on those, and it's probably easier for the future for me to just print my lines onto them. I would have loved to properly be able to ink stuff on there, but I think the only thing that really would have worked were some of my dip pens at that point, which that is a whole other step to take, I think. Besides all that, I joined a few little art projects. There was a Sentinel zine, Rescue Bot zine, Smokescreen collab, the Magma zine, and also the Secret Solenoid. Technically, most of the Secret Solenoid I finished in 2026 at the beginning of the year because I did a whole comic. I did do it in 2025, so it will count here. No real comments here, just sharing the stuff I've made where I can. As of making this video, I can only post previews, so here's a preview. So all those art projects were really fun. I did enjoy working on them. I feel like I really want to get better about procrastinating on these things. I would love to become the kind of artist that can join a project and finish their work for it almost immediately. Because I feel like for me, there's really not really much in between. Either I finish stuff the moment I'm in there because I'm running off my initial motivation, or I procrastinate to the very end. And I'm really tired of being that person that procrastinates. I've got a lot I want to do for 2026. Obviously, with this video, I'm trying to get back into the swing of making videos, so hopefully I'll be able to share more for 2026. I also got myself a nicer camera, so hopefully those videos will get to be better and better in quality, and I'll have, like, footage, because I'm terrible about actually recording footage, but I feel like if I have an external camera, it will mean I can do stuff on my phone while I'm recording, and I can also have B footage, which will be really cool. I want to do more art classes for sure, and keep doing cons. I don't know if I'll be able to table at that many cons compared to 2025, we'll have to see. But I always enjoy doing TF cons. I do want to do Anime Ohio again. I'm torn on Super Sensi Expo just because it was such a slow con for me. I don't know that was really worth it, but it was fun to do, so I feel like if things turn out that way, I wouldn't be against tabling there. Really, one of my main goals is to spend less time on social media, and I really want to dive more into the games and shows that I've been wanting to get into. And also, obviously, draw more. I want to make more animations. I want to get better at animation. There's so much that you can learn with animation, and I really just need to dive my toes into it, I think, and really get to make more and more complicated things. And I hope I get to do that with all of you. And I hope you enjoyed this video. I don't normally make vloggy stuff like this, but I felt like going over 2025 would be a good way to get back into the swing of things before I go into more scripted stuff. Let me know if you like this kind of thing, though, and maybe I'll make some more vlogs about the conventions I do or about some of the classes I'm taking. And obviously, feel free to like, subscribe, hit the bell, whatever you want to do, see my socials for all my art, etc., etc. But I hope you have a wonderful day!